Right now I'm trying to blend. I'm doing a lot of blending in this piece, as you can see, right? So let's just talk about this blending right here. Let's see. Well, let's do something very dramatic, like what Smashy's doing. Let's do it with this one. So I'm going to pull. Let's see. Let me see. Dana and Penny. Okay, here we go. So right here, I'm just going to pull this up so you can see a dramatic blend, okay, between these two images. So let's put that away. So now we have something like what you have, Smashy, right? Two very distinctive photographs. Let me just flip this, edit, transform. See, there's that free transform right up here. Control. Yours may be Command because you're on a Mac. So what I want, transform, what I want is to flip it horizontal. So here I have sort of the blend of two pictures here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend this with this picture back here. So one way to start is to take your eraser here, this one, and be sure up here that you have a soft edge. See, if it's hard, it will be a hard edge. You want a soft edge in blending, like that, 100% or 0%. And then just click out of it and it goes away. Now, remember, the brackets can make your brush be smaller or bigger on the keyboard next to the P, letter P. So now I can go, make sure you're on the right layer, turn layers on and off always. You see how I have this locked? I'm going to double click this to get this unlocked. Now, a rule of thumb that's important to remember when you're in Photoshop is assume you're going to make a mistake, assume you're going to mess things up. So what you want to do is duplicate these layers, highlight both of them. You can come up here and duplicate layers. So now I've got a duplicate. I'm just going to turn these off for my backup. Remember, you have a folder down here. Let me pull my layers so you can see this. You have a folder right here so that if you have a lot of duplicates, you can make a folder like this, bring it down, highlight the two of these, shift key, always gives you a multiple selection, and put into the folder. So now all my duplicates are organized in one layer. That's really helpful, but critically important, be sure to turn it off. So you want to be working with the layers that you have. So I'm going to blend this layer, and if I lose something, I can go back to my backup. So I could call this backup. Now you can do that multiple times, and that's why they have that. So now that you see how you can keep yourself organized in the layer window. So now I'm going to go back to that tool. Again, it's always checking where you are. I want the top tool, and I want to be on this layer. And if you notice, if I was on this layer, you see how it gives me that X? Well, that's telling me you're not on the right layer. I'm on a layer that's turned off. Click the layer that you want to work with. And that's why you always turn them on and off. So I want this. So now I'm going to blend the edges. Now you see I dropped it to opacity 300. If I want it strong, I can bring it up to 100. And you see, Smashy, you see what I'm doing?
Yeah, I see it.
I'm blending. The bigger your blend is, you see, you get a little bit more.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? So now you can get a little bit more blend. Now, Sometimes you don't want 100%. So, so for instance, let me go back to my eraser. So now you see I can bring in all of this, and Control Z goes back if you don't like it, right?
Wow. So this is with the eraser, the top one.
The top one, and do remember though, you see that's 100%. If I wasn't sure how much I want to take away, I pull down the strength of the erasing.
I got it.
So now I can just keep clicking until I like it.
Thank
So I
you
kind of
so
want to
much.
bring a little bit more, almost as if her entire face has the skyline. Back to the eraser. So that this way, now if I want to bring it up more, I can go that way.
Professor, quick question.
Yeah.
Say that you're blending those two images, but there's another layer underneath both of them. What would happen with the blending?
Well, you should always have, let me go back to this one. Good questions on those things. You should always have a layer like I have here as a background. You see? I have a background layer. So
it shouldn't be transparent?
Yeah, no. This is a layer, just color. See, if I turned all these things off, that's my background layer. Then here comes the sunset. I want to show you how to do a gradient now. Here's my, this was my duplicate. This is, now I'm trying to blend this. So you see now, I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to blend that.
Oh, wow.
You see? Soften that edge up. Then I want to bring in, what I had here was this wave. And I want to show you another thing here. Let me turn these all back on. So remember that you turn on and off a lot of things, right? So like, for instance, I had this turned off. But once you decide upon exactly the layers that you want, so I definitely want these layers. I definitely want this layer coming up. And I think I might have erased that one on here. So you see, I lost one of my layers here. So I'm going to bring it back on the wave. And so on here, let me get this. So on this one, I'm going to be happy with this over here. And what I want to do is, what I want to show you is that when you're happy with one of your layers, you can right click and give it a color, red, so that I know that these are the absolute layers I want to use. So red is absolute. So when I turn things on and off, I can remember what I have on. Because often, a lot of times, you don't know what you turn things on and off, and then you forget what was the layers. Because remember, you get a lot of layers when you start doing image manipulation. And so on here, this one is the one that I need to bring back on this. So that's why it's important, to be able to turn a layer off. So you do need a background layer, and knowing your subject is important to know that I would, think of your subject matter. Maybe if it's a lion, you're going to have a jungle. Maybe if it's Marley, it might be a concert footage. What's going to be behind the subject matter when you blend? Because yes, you do see the background on that.
Thank you.
What's around the edge of the layer. So I want to show you how to use a couple of more tools as you start working and wanting these creative objectives. And the only way to do that is to really get to know your tools. So I'm gonna have to bring that wave back, because I can see that I did not do a save as a higher number. You remember on that when I mentioned to you? Save as. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to call this 4. And I'm going to see if I can bring back that 1. Bring back this one. And no, it still brought it brought the one that I did not back up. So you see, if I didn't back up, I lost that wave. It's a little bit here, but I do like to get back to the original source. So always remember that not that hyper, but that higher number as you progress so that you can go back. If you miss something or you lost something, you can always go back. That's a really important production tip. And that's for any computer document, not just Photoshop. So what I was trying to do here, just to show you, is I had a sunset here. Here's my wave. I had a sunset, and I wanted to bring in the aspect of this color. So what I needed to do was I needed to get a gradient back here that I can make. So my background is this color here. And so I need to blend this background so that it is feathered. There's a lot of blending with what we're doing here. So I needed to make a gradient that was like this. So this is how you do the gradient tool. First of all, let's go back to my city here. So I made the horizon, and let me bring back the sunset color, this one. We'll keep this on because this is what is the blend behind everything. And also I'm trying to blend this whirlpool. So to get the gradient, you need to establish where you want the gradient to be. So I'm just going to create a blank layer down here. Remember, your blank layers are right down here, but you also can come up here to the hamburger navigational tool right here, and you can make new layer and so forth. And remember, when you're here, you can also do the merge visible. Merge visible is how I did that background before. So I need a new layer to show you the gradient tool. Pull this back down. And I can pull this up. Remember, you can drag it up. So I'm just going to put it to the foreground. And you want to establish the marching ants where you want this gradient to be. So that was using the lasso tool. Remember, these are all marching ants tools. So I just did something freehand so you can see it. And we'll come back to this because I want to show you the path tool, which is a vector tool, so that you can begin to create icons and so forth. But right now I'm doing the gradient tool. So to get to the gradient tool is the tool right here. And the gradient tool, if you notice, you have the gradients here. These are just palettes, colors for you. So you can kind of, remember to try to utilize the tools that are there for you so that you're not recreating the wheel all the time. So like I could have started with a palette all my own, but I knew that my colors that I had was around the oranges. So I actually made another palette here. This palette of gradients is with you all the time. So if I make a palette in one document, it will always be there in the other document. So I've saved it in my palettes. So this time, let's just do something different. Let's do purples. So again, you click this tool up here, and this gives you the editing of customizing what one of these do. So I'm going to just cancel this and double click this. So you see automatically it put it to there, but I want to edit that. So we're going to edit it by clicking the tool again from here to there. So you click that. I have the marching ants where I want them to be. Let me make some more real estate here. so you can see things and so forth. So I'm going to close this out. So that's the palettes. And now I have the ability to use the tools to edit the gradient. So to edit the gradient, and the gradient is a very important tool. Let me pull it up here again. Let me cancel it. I want to click this. Okay. It's interesting. They took away some of the tools, but we'll come back to that. So on here, you have, you can move this. So this color can be changed if you just double click it. And then this color up here is your opacity. So you can bring that down and it will give you the transparency grid. So whenever you see that grid, that's showing you transparency. Now, if I want more colors, you just click inside here. So I could double click and bring in, I have yellow down here, I'll bring in green. So now it's moving to green. If you don't want a color, you just mouse down and push it away. And if I wanted the opacity here, I just click this and I can bring this up. So green and purple is going to give me a kind of a grayish color. So you want to always be thinking of your colors. I might want this to be more of an orange. And that will blend a little better with the pink. So you're always blending to each color. And then you want to be sure you have new. So you're saving it is what you're doing. And then you're saying, okay. Now, as you notice, these tools come back up. So when you click it, it takes it away, but gives you the editing tool. When you cancel it, these come back up. And what these are how the gradient is going to be used. Is it linear? Is it radial? Is it angles or horizontal or a diamond? So let's just do the linear. Now, to get the gradient inside just the marching ants, you need to be sure that it's basically a rubber band. So I mouse down and go to, I could pass the edge of it, and that gives you the range from one to the next. Now I could do it inside, you see, and it's trying to fit it all within the marching ants, as you notice. So if you want the gradient in a very specific area, make those marching ants, and the gradient tool will go only within it. So let's pick up another color. And you see here, I have this, and I'm just going to bring this back, close this up. And now I have that loaded. Right now, I have it selected. So you see, now you can see when I'm using this tool, how it works. So that's literally putting the gradient within from the beginning to the end. I could go outside it, and it will give me partial. So you see, it depends on where that rubber band is. Now, if I wanted radial, radial is going to give me the radial. And again, if you stretch that rubber band out, the radial is going to get bigger. If you go small, the radial is going to be smaller. And again, the same thing with this, horizontal on here or not. And so now again, remember, the marching ants are hovering within the center. That's putting the gradient inside. If I wanted the gradient outside of this, then again, I would come up to my select and inverse. And now what's important for you to see is this is where everything matters about those marching ants. So when I do the gradient tool now, it's putting it on the outside. So wherever your marching ants are, whether they are inverted to be just within, or you want to apply any tool to the outside, you would inverse it. And you can see that it's in the reverse because I see the marching ants around. But sometimes when you're zoomed in, you don't see that outside. And you kind of freak out and you go, oh my God, what happened? Why is it outside? Well, then you just Control Z, undo. Remember your undos. I remember one time I was working on a project and I was on the computer too long and I went to garden and I cut a rose off. And in my mind, I said undo for cutting the rose in the real world. And I realized I'd been on the computer too long. So the undo, it's very, very advantageous to have the Control Z. And you can go back multiple times, like it already did take away my gradient tool. Any questions on the gradient tool? Zoom out. So you can see that I needed to make that gradient tool for here, but that is how you use the gradient tool. Now, on the other aspect of blending, let's talk about that aspect about Gloria's blending of the painting. Like right now, I need to blend this water. But the problem is I do not have, I should get another asset of water to blend here. Just trying to find pictures that have this texture right here. But you can pick up this texture. So, so you can pick up pieces of your picture. So this is the texture that I want to get. So I'm just going to grab this like so. And I'm going to copy. And then I'm going to paste in place. And what it does is it makes another layer for me. So now I have this layer where I can use it multiple times. And I can also do Control T or Command and just rotate it and get it to be, and I did a double click to position it. And Alt key, if you notice the cursor, it doubles it. So now I can duplicate it a number of times. And again, get it so that I don't see the seams. And now when I have this turned on, I can begin to blend this into this picture. So sometimes you are always thinking of a tactile, like a physical situation, as if you had magazines, cut-ups. That's what Photoshop lets you do, is to be able to blend these pictures together until we have something. So another way, like right now, I want this to blend in. I can do a couple of things. I could do, you remember the one that we did with the smudge tool on the photo retouching. I could take this, but I'm not on the right layer. You see, I need to get on the right layer. Where is that layer? Here is that layer. And I can begin to stretch this and blend this through. Same thing with this one. Again, be sure that you have auto select on. I think by default they have that now, which lets you choose right from the pictures which one you have. So right now I'm on this one, and this one I could also blend. But you also have the ability on here, under Edit, under Transform, you can distort and warp. So on warping, let me just show you what it does, is it lets you stretch and get a little bit of what you want on there. Now this is a little bit of like scaling and resizing things up. So I'm getting a little bit of a distortion. So you have to be careful with this tool because it's sort of enlarging. And that's, remember we talked about that. So you really have to be careful. So I probably would be a little bit, I probably would do more of that copy and pasting, because you can already see that the resolution here, I'll double click this. The resolution here is a little better than when I start stretching it on here. So you have to be careful about, sorry folks, you have to be careful of how it gets stretched and blended on here. So that's another important thing. And like even here, this right away is not as sharp. You see, when you zoom in, you really see the poor resolution. So again, there are some tools to help you with that. So let me just take this one here. You would go up to Filter, Sharpen. And what that does is it begins to bring in, oh, I have 10 minutes. I want to come back out of here. Bring in under Filter. You see up here, Sharpen. I can apply that again, and it will keep doing the sharpen. And that is, unfortunately, this is Alt. And so if I do the keyboard shortcut, Alt Control F, it will keep sharp. Now you see, now I sharpened it too much. So you have to be very careful. All it does is make strong contrast, but you can also do that in adjustment here with levels, and you can push that contrast. And that will help with a little bit of the picture screen. Now, if this was for web, I could get away with it because this is the size you would see it. But when you print, that is where you have the problem, as you can see, right? So resolution is everything when it comes to print. You can even see how this is a good resolution on here. So print gives you that unfortunate true test of resolution. So I want to go a little bit further on here because I have 8 minutes. I don't want to get cut off. Did anybody have, just to go back, did anybody have any other questions in regard to the new assignment for collage? And the reason why I want to be sure that we address this, because on Thursday, you're going to present your concept. And again, you will be getting 3 images for your concept, but this time it's going to be for the poster. And you're going to choose a subject matter. So you can go and find some assets that will represent that subject matter. And we will begin to start working with other tools within Photoshop to be able to execute sort of a poster layout versus something that is the hyperrealism is very much called a digital image or a digital illustration in that context. Any questions on that? And I also did put under the collage, I did put some resources for you to address, which is dealing with things that are more advertising layouts for pages, for banners, for posters, and so forth. And so here are some professional examples that I've given you and how much you utilize things that are a combination of using Photoshop, and we probably will jump in a little bit with the vector tool. Since I only have 6 minutes, we'll do a little bit of Illustrator when we come back. I do like to always show a little bit of Illustrator in every class I teach because it is one of those foundation tools, and it is actually the tool that is here, which is the path tool. I started that before when I showed you the polygonal. Let me turn off these images to simplify things. So when you make a path, let me use the one that is the one I did with here. when you have the path and you're making it because you're using something geometric and you have to move fast, as I'm doing here, let me just stop it at this point. What I wanted to show you is that on here, this path is a vector tool. So you see right now, let me zoom in so you can see this. So the path tool gives you absolute precision. And as you can see, I have blue points here. And so that's when you use this tool here, which is a vector tool. Whoops. And let me bring this up so you can see the points. These points are where you say, I can fix it in Photoshop or Illustrator, because you can get the curve exactly where you want the marching ants to be. And so when we go back to look at what we were talking about here, a lot of these examples could be using Illustrator. You see? And so I want you to know how you can and that would be the next, if you want to become a visual designer, if you want to have the control and the command of these tools as a visual designer, you must learn Illustrator and be proficient in both programs, Photoshop and Illustrator, because you are the basis of everything, and everybody needs that to put into video, to put into web, to put into print, or put into interactive designs or motion graphics or animation. You're always using those two programs. And so that's where you jump back and forth in between all of these programs as you incorporate images. So for instance, like this design right here, the art director said, you know, I want a 1950s microphone. Well, you're going to research that microphone, you're going to find a photograph of that microphone, and you're going to trace with the path tool to get these geometric shapes. Not hyperrealism, not photorealism, but graphic design. And you're not going to draw this by freehand. You're going to trace it on a photograph of a microphone that you have found. So it's important to know the same thing with the bear. You've gotten the bear for the photograph and you've sort of blended it into black, and now you're putting type on top of things. Now Photoshop has type, and we will use the type tool. But the important part for us is to really think of your subject matter, about what you want to do. And that's why I've given you this Google page that shows you how engaging these forms of poster designs, which can be a magazine ad and so forth. And we're going to talk a little bit more about design